Did we just watch the same game yet again? Yeah, but this time a different outcome. Why is that? Legendary head coach Jay Wright has the answer.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Monday, December 23rd, 2024. Merry Christmas Eve, or as my kids like to call it, Merry Christmas Adam. I'm not joking. Okay, welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade, and you're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks so much for making us your first listen or watch. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Check it all out at FanDuel.com. Hey, welcome in everydayers, all you Locked On Tar Heels insiders, and of course the Locked On Tar Heels Discord members. Great to have you all here kicking off Christmas week. Let's get into it. We've got our Four Corners recap. We've got our Shady stat of the game. Carolina has landed their defensive coordinator. They're keeping it in the family, the new family. And women's basketball gets a big dub on Saturday as well. But of course, we got to start with men getting their most important win of the season to date. 76-74 on Saturday over UCLA in the CBS Sports Classic. Carolina is now 7-4 all time in the CBS Sports Classic. They have the best record of the four teams. Thank you very much. 3-0 against UCLA in this event. Series-wise, this is the 15th meeting against UCLA. Carolina, I probably wouldn't have guessed this. They're 12-3 all time against UCLA, including now 7 in a row. And RJ Davis, by the way, I had put him on 3-point record watch. He fell one shy of tying Marcus Page. RJ Davis now has 298 threes for his career, needs one more to tie MP5 and two more to become the first Tar Heel ever to make 300 threes. Here's where I want to start talking about this game. We'll get to, how important it was and why and all that. There was a quote from Jay Wright post-game, who, now works for CBS, is in the studio, legendary Villanova head coach. He said this, and I want to make sure that you hear this. Quote, "I think North Carolina is going to look back on this day, and it's going to be the day they figured out how to play with four guards. Not Hubert Davis. He knew how to do it. He had to convince his team how they have to play with four guards." End quote. This is coming from Jay Wright, this guy that had Villanova absolutely rolling when he stepped away. And let's not forget, by the way, that this is the man who basically brought the four-guard lineup to college basketball. Do you remember, would it have been the 05 or the 09 NCAA tournament? I remember playing Villanova and being like, what does Jay Wright have these Wildcats do? They're out here with four short dudes, but they're running around like crazy and we can't keep up with them. What is happening, right? You remember that? I remember that distinctly feeling that way. And now Carolina is leaning into it. And now that head coach is praising Carolina for what he saw from them on Saturday. Do not take that lightly. Do not take it with a grain of salt. If Jay Wright says he's liking what he's seeing, I'm liking what I'm hearing from Jay Wright. The linchpin in this, the key to it for me, is Ian Jackson really, really starting to assert himself and the coaching staff really unleashing him to do so. Career high 24 points in this game. His two biggest games now are two of the biggest games of the season. 23 points against Alabama was his previous career high. Ian Jackson really becoming a more solidly formed part of this is the thing. So, I wanted to say, okay, Jay Wright feels like he's seeing this. Let me go back and look if the stats and the data back up what Jay Wright was seeing. So I went and looked, because you know me, researcher dork guy. That's what I do, right? I want to back up what the eyeballs are telling us and see if it's legit. Carolina played 23 different lineup combinations on Saturday. And my question that I wanted to find out is how many of those were essentially four-guard lineups. And by that, I'm including any combination of 4 players out of this 6-player group: Elliot, Cadeau, RJ Davis, Seth, Trimble, Ian Jackson, Drake, Powell, and Cade Tyson. Now, with Drake and Cade, I recognize you could define them as forwards because they do often play the forward position. And I hear that, but they're truly both guards, right? It's just they're playing as the 4 in a 4-guard lineup. So those 6 guys, and I'm excluding any of the lineups that had 2 of these 4: Jalen Washington, Jalen Withers, Van Allen Lubin, Ty Clod. So any lineups that had 2 of those guys, I'm not counting as a 4-guard lineup. Any that had 4 of the other 6, I'm counting as a 4-guard lineup. Does that make sense? Okay. Carolina played 23 different lineups. 20 of them I'm classifying as 4-guard lineups because, again, they had some combination of 4 of Elliot, RJ, Seth, Ian, Drake, or Cade. That is showing me that, yes, Hubert Davis and the staff are really leaning into this. Only 3 different lineup combinations had 2, like the Jae'lyns together, or a Jalen and a Van Allen or something like that. Only happened in 3 different lineup combinations. And by the way, lineup combinations, I should say, that didn't play much together. I should have had them ready. Forgive me for not, but let me see if I can find them really quick. Jalen Withers, Jalen Washington. There was a lineup with both of them, 34 seconds. Jalen Withers, Ty Clod, 37 seconds. Another one with Jalen Withers and Jalen Washington, 41 seconds. So of the 3 lineups that had 2 bigs at the same time, none of them played more than 41 seconds. So there you go. North Carolina really riding this thing. Great job by Jay Wright pointing it out and realizing that it was what was really helping Carolina. There were 10 of the 23 lineups played a minute 50 or more together. The highest points per possession of any lineup in this game was Elliot, RJ, Ian, Drake, and Ty Clod. So you had the starting backcourt like from last year of Elliot and RJ, plus the 2 key critical freshmen, Ian and Drake, and then Ty Clod. And that's not me saying I don't think Seth is critical. It's just saying in this game on that day, that was the lineup that was the most efficient from a points per possession standpoint. The second most points per possession did include Seth. But didn't have RJ, interestingly enough. Elliot, Cadeau, Seth, Trimble, Ian Jackson, Cade Tyson, and Jalen Washington. The group that played the most together in this game, the quintet that had the most time together on the floor: Elliot, Cadeau, RJ Davis, Seth Trimble, Ian Jackson, and Jalen Washington. That group played 5 minutes, 44 seconds. So the 3 guards that have started most of the year, Ian Jackson, Jalen Washington, they outscored UCLA 10-8 and were 1.2 points per possession. And that group that started the second half, did you catch that Coach Davis went with a new starting 5 in the second half, and he switched out 2 players? It was Elliot, RJ, and Seth. And then instead of Drake and Van Allen Lubin, it was Ian Jackson and Ty Clod. That group played 3:27 together and 1.19 points per possession. So really interesting stuff to keep watching there. And how does Carolina continue to figure out more about how to utilize this well and how to best do it? And whether that continues to work or not, they got to figure it out, because Carolina has not left themselves much breathing room. We'll talk more about that later in the week. But as they play Campbell next Sunday and then get into 19 games of ACC play, man, you just got to do work. And to that point, I cannot emphasize enough how critically, wildly, vastly important it was for UNC to come back and win this game against UCLA. Losing to Florida had made it all the more critical. Carolina's backs were all the further back up against the wall. Post game with Mark Campbell, by the way, if you didn't watch that, you can go check it out. We went even further in depth on the specifics of the game. We typically go big picture once we get back into the week. I said post game that it was a season saving win. And in a way, I still like that. But I would change it to, it is season saving for now. I would compare it to, like, if we were calling it football, I would compare it to an important third down, like in the second quarter of a game where you were already down 2 or 3 scores. and you really need to pick up this third down, or maybe it's 4th and short, but you got to score, you got to catch up and make up ground. That's what this win feels like, is Carolina had gotten behind the ball a little bit, and they got to get this win to catch up. But I also really liked what our friend Michael Shadron, one of our Locked On Tar Heels insiders, by the way, plug for Locked On Tar Heels insiders, man. It's a great way to go deeper with this show and connect with me individually. And all of these charts and stats and data I'm talking to you about, man, you get them free when you're an insider. Anyway, he and I were messaging back and forth about the importance of this game afterward. And something he said was that he called it season changing. And I like that almost better and differently than my season saving phrase, because, season long, there are going to be other opportunities to save the season. And Carolina, even with losing this game, still ultimately might have made the tournament. But winning this game, getting this, the best of maybe, I guess it depends on how Dayton plays or doesn't play. They lost to Cincinnati over the weekend. But this is either their best or second best non-conference win. And that's why it is season changing, because now you have the opportunity to maybe, I don't think Carolina can get a 1 or a 2 seed unless they just run the gauntlet, right? Like maybe at that point, which seems far-fetched, but who knows, man? That's what sports is so great for. But if it's season changing, because it improves Carolina's seed line potentiality for the NCAA tournament. And so I like that phrase from Shadron. Here's the thing, though. While this win is so critically important, if you watch the game, you know what I'm about to say is true. Carolina did not fix all their issues. We've got more of that to unpack, and we're going to do so later in the week of what are some of these issues that remain, because they were there. It's just sometimes you put a little bit of lipstick on the pig when you can pull out a win when maybe you feel like you shouldn't. But despite the fact that there are these issues still to be fixed, it is a resume building win, and it is a resume building win that is going to have season long legs. UCLA is going to be very competitive in the Big Ten, and we need to be cheering for UCLA. Also, we need to be cheering for Dayton, right? Like, we want both of those teams to win all season long. But like, when I talk about things that are fixed, because even though I said not everything's fixed, there are things that were better in this game. One of which, let me give you quickly, and then we'll move on. Remember down the stretch against Florida, Carolina could not secure a defensive rebound. The last 3 possessions of the game, the final 3 minutes, literally every offensive trip that Florida had, they got an offensive rebound and then scored. In this game, Carolina was infinitely better down, not just down the stretch, but the entire second half of the second half. So the last 10 minutes of the game. And the reason I say that is because UCLA's last offensive rebound of the game came with like 10:40 something left. So basically for the final 10:30 of this game, Carolina did not allow a single offensive rebound. That is critically important. Think like as tight as things were down the stretch there, if UCLA gets literally 1 offensive rebound and put back, Carolina probably loses this game. And that's the difference. Had Carolina not allowed Florida those offensive rebounds and putbacks, Carolina probably beats Florida as well. That's what we're talking about, man. It's just discipline and details, as Coach Davis always talks about, right? Okay, Carolina got to the free throw line on Saturday more than any other game this season. Yes, the most of the season. Crazy, right? Yes, we're going to get to that and the rest of our Four Corners recap all coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about Rocket Mortgage. Hey, did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about, or maybe that you were accidentally paying for twice, man? I've known multiple people who have used this to find some help, to find subscriptions they didn't even realize they had and that they were still paying for. Rocket Money made it so easy to track those all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your subscriptions. It monitors your spending and it helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together all in one place, whether it's subscriptions, money spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. So this is great, man. Use Rocket Money, cancel your unwanted subscriptions, and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. Once again, that's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. Time for the Four Corners preview. As I teased, we're going to start by talking about free throws. Carolina got to the free throw line, or had more free throw attempts than in any other game this season. For those of you watching the show today, you can see that Carolina had 35 free throw attempts. That's crazy, man. It's great. It's great. It's great. In fact, let me look in real time here. They have, I mean, it's pretty nice. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the 5th time in the 12 games this season Carolina has had 30 or more free throw attempts, but this was the most. 35 is the most attempts they've taken. And so in a season where Carolina is getting to the line a ton already, it's not nothing to say this is the most attempts they've had. Now, it was not the most makes they've had all season. The percentage had a little bit to be desired, but it was the 5th most makes they had all season. So look, yes, I would like to see the percentage higher. It was just the 5th time this year it's been under 70%, the free throw percentage, but that volume is important. And not only is Carolina getting to the free throw line good just for offensive output and scoring and efficiency and stuff like that, reminder, as Roy Williams would like to remind you, that it's critically important to get the other team's best players in foul trouble. And that's what happened in this game. Tyler Bilodeau was killing Carolina. The Tar Heels had no answer for him other than to send him to the bench saddled with foul trouble. He had picked up his 4th foul, in the first half of the second half. That mattered in this game. If Tyler Bilodeau does not get in foul trouble, I don't think it's a stretch to say UCLA wins this game comfortably. Sky Clark fouled out. Lazar Stefanovic, 4 fouls. I mean, those things mattered in this game. So Carolina pressing the issue, attacking, getting the free throw line, going back to those 4 guards. That's what they're going to be able to do when it's Carolina running those lineups. Got to keep doing it. Number 2 in the Four Corners recap. Carolina had been struggling. Yes, I'm stringing that out purposefully from 3-point line. From 3-point range in December. This was the 5th game in December. The first 4, Carolina shot 25 out of 111 3-point attempts. That's just 22.5%. In this game, it wasn't crazy, didn't set the world on fire, but it was, 12 percentage points better than it had been in December. Carolina was 8 of 23, which is 34.8%. You'd love to see it go up. You'd take something closer to 40%, but man, being in the mid-30s is right around where you want to be. One thing I didn't like in Carolina's 3-point attack in this game is that Cade Tyson, 0 attempts. Some of you might say, wait, no, he took and made one. No. That was one of Carolina's turnovers because his heel was on the sideline when he shot it. It would have been a great look. It was perfect, went in, but it doesn't count because he was out of bounds. So a step back in the correct direction for Carolina from 3. Got to keep building on that as they get ready for Campbell on Sunday. Number 3 in our Four Corners recap, gang rebounding. This is something that we know is so critical for this team. We just talked about how well Carolina did stopping UCLA from getting offensive rebounds down the stretch of this game. And part of that is that Carolina season long is having to be all in because there's not just an Armando to blah, 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 and gobble up every rebound. That was me being like Cookie Monster, but rebound, like the rebound monster. I apologize. We're almost at Christmas. Deal with it. But Carolina wins the rebounding battle in this game, 34-28. And yet, here's what's crazy to me. Drake Powell led the team in rebounding with 5. Now, you might look at that and think, man, what's everybody's problem? Why can't they get 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? Well, 5 different Tar Heels had at least 4 rebounds. That's 20 just from those 5 guys. 10 different Tar Heels played in this game. All of them had at least 1 rebound, and 9 of the 10 had multiple rebounds. That's so important because it means that everyone realizes how important it is to dig in, chip in, and pitch in with rebounding. And they did it. Again, 5 different Tar Heels had 4 or more rebounds. Now, here's the one issue. I didn't name who it was that had all those. Remember I said one player only had 1 rebound? That was Van Allen Lubin. Of the players that had 2 rebounds, Ty Claude, Jalen Withers. Of the 4 front court, like actual kind of big guys, Jalen Washington was the only one that had more than 2. That's where the issue lies, is yes, gang rebounding is important, but it's got to be the front court players. So that's an area where Carolina needs to step up, but ultimately glad they were able to win the rebounding. And then fourthly, I think we can all recognize that Carolina's offense was not perfect in this game. Way too many turnovers, not always finishing shots, not a great field goal percentage, but hear me say this. It was the most points that UCLA has surrendered in any single game this season. They had given up, the most they'd given up was 75. Carolina doesn't shatter it. They score 76. But that matters, man. In a game where it's strength on strength, UCLA's defense against Carolina's offense, UCLA's slower tempo against Carolina's up tempo, this is what you got to do. You got to win those kind of wars. And that's what the Tar Heels did, man. And I love it. I love it that they're doing that. Again, can it be more efficient? Can they be better? Yes, 100%. But, I mentioned those 18 turnovers. UCLA prides themselves. That's what Mick Cronin teams do on forcing turnovers. So, you can allow some of that. We'll talk more about curtailing those turnovers later in the week. But, let me give you some numbers on UCLA's scoring defense. 5 of their opponents coming in had scored 50 or fewer points. 7 of their opponents had scored 60 or fewer than points. As I already said, nobody had scored more than 75. And the average, they were allowing 56.8 points a game. Carolina scored 20 more than that. That's great, man. The offense just has to keep finding itself. You got to feel good about that. Carolina's doing those things with RJ not clicking, with Elliot not clicking. It was a rough shooting day for Seth. There's encouragement there, right? What happens when all of these guys get going? Because it's going to happen, man. We'll get there. We'll figure it out. Now, one more little bit of basketball, but we got to switch our attention to football, where Carolina now has their defensive coordinator to go along with Bill Belichick. Time to start filling out this staff, man. And they're keeping it in the family. Well, the new Carolina football family. Plus, it's time for the Shady stat of the game. All that coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel, you guys, the NFL playoffs, they are almost here. But it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Do it, man. The regular season is almost gone, and you want to make sure you get it. Get the NFL playoff stuff too, but make sure you get the regular season, because right now, new customers, you can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many different ways for you to pick up a W. I love it. As I look at the college basketball, different things you can pick. Conference winner odds, Carolina's 3rd in the ACC, Final Four odds, national champion odds, national player of the year, all this great stuff. Well, one of them is Carolina's bowl game is upcoming this Saturday. It's the Fenway Bowl. Carolina's playing UConn at 11 a.m. Ugh, early start in Boston, man. It's going to be cold, I bet. I haven't looked at the weather report. But anyway, Carolina is favored by 2.5 points in this game at FanDuel. So go check it out. Visit FanDuel.com today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. It's time for the Shady stat of the game, and I have not done a good job at wearing my sunglasses for the Shady stats of the game this basketball season. But look, we're doing it here. It's all coming together. Isaac Schade with the Shady stat of the game. If you're not catching how thickly I'm dripping on, this synergy, man, here it is for you. Shady stat of the game is second chance points. Carolina led this statistical category 13-2. That's despite what's cool about it is Carolina did lead offensive rebounds over UCLA, but by a slim margin of just 9-7, and yet dominated second chance points, again, 13-2. What does that say to me? It means that Carolina did a nice job when UCLA got an offensive rebound of stopping them from getting back and scoring. Literally just 2 points, man. That's great. But it also means that Carolina is taking advantage of their extra opportunities, because for me, Basketball is all about this. Here's how I boil it down. You win when you score more. How do you score more? You get the ball in the basket more. How do you get the ball in the basketball? Well, get more shots. How do you get more shots? Offensive rebounds, block a shot, get a possession. All of these things, steals, avoiding turnovers, it all adds up to more possessions, more shots, more points. That's what you're trying to do. That's what Carolina did in this game. So that stat matters. Shady's stat of the game, there you go. All right, let's turn our attention to football, where on Sunday afternoon, CBS Sports Matt Zenitz reported that I'm quoting here from his Twitter. Steve Belichick is set to join his dad's staff as North Carolina's defensive coordinator after Washington's bowl game, sources tell CBS Sports. As Washington's defensive coordinator this season, he's improved the Huskies from 99th nationally in total defense last year to 26th this year. So a lot there. Look, let's be honest. The breadcrumbs have all been there, if not outright loaves of bread, right? There was scuttlebutt I just said scuttlebutt. I apologize. I feel very Dwight Schrute. Remember that episode was like, what do you guys hear? What's the scuttlebutt, right? Sorry, that's the Office fan in me coming out. There were rumblings as Coach Belichick was interviewing about him, wanting to get a stipulation in his contract for his son, Steve, to be the head coach in waiting. There has been nothing confirmed on that as a reality. But I think it felt pretty clear and obvious that he was going to want to bring his son to be his defensive coordinator. Like, it just makes sense. Not just because he's his son, but the stat I just gave you from Matt Zenitz's reporting that Washington last year, 100th in the nation, 99th, let's call it a nice round 100 in total defense. This year, they're basically 25th. So, I'm trying to think the math in real time, but that's basically like, you've grown, if you were on the back end of 100, you've grown by 3/4 up to 25. That's great, man. Bring that on. And I love it because part of the breadcrumbs that led you to know that this was happening was starting to get some interest from some Washington defensive players, including Kamori House, a linebacker who committed to Carolina on Saturday. Just finished his freshman year. So 3 years of eligibility left, meaning 2 years before he's draft eligible. I guess I haven't checked his age and things to make sure on that. But, and look, this isn't some rando prospect who decided to come. House had offers from the likes of people like Michigan, Oklahoma, Florida, USC. Chose to come to Carolina to follow his defensive coordinator. He's a smaller, undersized guy, 6 foot, 213 pounds. But we've seen, think of a guy like Kamen Rucker, who was an undersized edge. And it don't matter, dominates. Think of a guy like Willie Lampkin, an undersized guard, but the best guard in the nation this year in Division I, right? Like, it doesn't matter, man. If you've got the technique and the talent and the work ethic, go get it, man. So this year, House had 35 tackles, again, as a freshman, 1 forced fumble and an interception. And in fact, that week he had the interception. He was the Big Ten Freshman of the Week. Crazy stuff there. Think about all the great teams in the Big Ten, all the great freshmen. He won that award. So love House to come over with Belichick. And also remember that Amari Campbell decided to come back. So unless something crazy happens, I'm guessing those are probably your 2 starting linebackers next year. Come on, man. House was one of the top coveted. Like, I think he was ranked second in 247 Sports' linebacker transfer portal rankings, and Campbell would have been right there at the top had he been in the portal. So it's kind of like Seth Trimble getting back, who was a phenomenal player. Also, Carolina going international over the weekend in football recruiting. Class of 2025 defensive tackle, and forgive me, I have not figured out yet the pronunciation of this young man's name, but Terry Nwabusi Azalea from Munich, Germany, commits on Saturday. He had initially signed with Wake Forest back on December 4th, but then decommitted after Dave Clawson left. And so it's great. Lots of stuff. And this gives you an insight into what Carolina is and is doing right now. He said, Azalea did, quote, Coach Belichick was one of the main factors in my recruitment. I chose UNC because I know he can bring out the best of me as an athlete. Being from Germany, not a lot of colleges are known there, but UNC definitely is due to notable alumni like Michael Jordan and Lawrence Taylor. That made me look deeper into the school, and I fell in love with it. Meaning all of this, Carolina has to continue to capitalize on this opportunity, not just on the football field and in football recruiting, but basketball as well. And by the way, that tells me that there is a rife international market out there that Carolina can lean into. The funny thing is, he has not yet visited Carolina, planning to take an official visit sometime after the holidays and then be an early enrollee. By the way, Azalea is 6'2", 305, and his brother was a fullback with the Ravens. So pretty cool stuff there. Very quickly, the weekend whip around, not much action. Women's basketball also played on Saturday, beat Norfolk State 90-47. Coach Banghart's team is now 12-2 overall. Remember, 0-1 in the ACC, lost to Georgia Tech recently. This game was basically over after the first quarter, 29-8 at that point. And stop me if you've heard this before about the women's games this season. 10 different Tar Heels scored, 6 of them in double figures. Lainey Grant led the way with 15. Lissa Usby had 10 points, 11 rebound, double-double. I mean, this team continues to just operate really balanced. It's a balanced offensive attack, and man, that just makes it that much more difficult for opposition to do their scouting report, and be ready to go. Carolina is really, while they're balanced offensively, they're really, really winning with their defense, holding 7 of the 14 teams they've played to 50 or fewer points, and holding 12 of the opponents they've played to under 60. Remember, they've played 14 games. 12 of those opponents have scored under 60. As you would guess, the only 2 that haven't are their 2 losses, UConn and now Georgia Tech as well. And it's not just about points. It's about like low shooting percentages. Carolina held Norfolk State, and hear me say it's Norfolk State, fine, whatever, to 28.6% from the field and 13% from 3. I don't care who you are, what team it is, holding a team to that low a shooting percentage is wild. And Carolina, not just balanced with who's doing it, but man, 14 for 31 from 3. That's 45.2%. That 14 made threes is tied for the most in a single game in Carolina program history. And 6 different Tar Heels made a 3. 5 of them had multiple threes in this game. So really, really cool. Now it's ACC play the rest of the way, though. Carolina is off this week and at Miami next Sunday to start the main chunk of ACC play. Wrestling had 3 duels on Saturday in Nashville, went 1-2. Lost to Ohio State and Iowa State, and then beat Lock Haven soundly 37-3. So the fellas are now 4-4 on the season, and we'll keep tabs on that. All right, guys, great to get back going this week. It is Christmas week, but we're still going to have 5 shows for you, a show every day of the week, including on Friday, getting ready for Campbell on Sunday and the bowl game on Saturday. So make sure you're ready for all of that. I will be doing some traveling, but I will be going to record a little bit ahead, but also a little bit as we're on the go. So stay tuned for all of that. If you haven't subscribed to the show on audio and video, make sure you do so you don't miss a second. We're working to get to 10,000 YouTube subscribers in the first 3 years of the show. We are well on the way, but man, it's crunch time. We got to hit it by the end of February, and we're so close. Would you help us? If you've not subscribed on YouTube already, join the revolution, baby. Let's get after it. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow, but until then, peace.